Hey everybody, it's Emily the Crazy Worm Lady. I'm here today with one of my mortar trays that I poured the contents of one of my Worm Factory 360 trays into, and I was going to harvest it, so I thought I would bring you guys along. So you can see there's a little bit of unprocessed stuff here and there, but overall, let me get under this light, these castings are really pretty. There's some springtails and things like that in here as well. But I was thinking of separating the cocoons out and doing something similar to Lilia, who did a cocoon only bin, and depending how many I come up with, I'm thinking of trying the same thing. So I'm going to get a tripod set up and see if I can get this lighting a little bit better, and we will get started. Okay, so I pushed all the castings up to one side here. I have a big tote that I'm going to put the finished castings in. I have just a little bowl here I was going to put the cocoons in. And I have just an old worn out Rubbermaid storage container that I was going to put any worms in that I will move back into one of my systems. So let's get started. Here is a method I also learned from Lilia. I will link her channel below. Using these wire mesh baskets to sift your castings makes life so much easier. I think this is about 1/8 inch screen that this wire basket is made out of, but with the handles it makes sifting very simple, not so back-breaking. So let me set this tripod up and you can watch me go through this process. Alright, so I'm going to put a few handfuls of these castings into this wire mesh container here, and I'm just going to sift it. Just let it run back and forth. And see what I end up with here. You'll see what's left in here is primarily worms and some unprocessed bedding. So these I will put into my container to go back into the system, because I don't want to stress the worms out. So that little bit left in the bottom is fine. I'm going to dump that into my container over here. So now on this side we have what we just sifted, and this material is just really fine, flaky, really pretty. So I'm just looking carefully for some cocoons. I'm not seeing any in this handful, so I'm going to toss this into my large Rubbermaid storage tote. And this is what I do. I just go through piecewise, look for some cocoons, and if I don't find any cocoons, I just dump it into the storage container. So I'm going to go through this little set here, and then I'll bring you back for some more. Alright, so here's round 2. I did not find any cocoons in that bunch, which I was really surprised. Usually I find a lot of cocoons, so I'm not really sure what that's all about. So we'll just have to see. I mean, my worms I think are perfectly healthy, but I'm just used to finding a lot of cocoons. So, got another basket full, and I'm just going to sift. Sorry, I think I just knocked the camera on you guys. But again, there's very little left once I sift it. And you can bang it a little bit, try to get extra stuff to fall through. I just kind of move it back and forth a bit, but without doing it too much, because you don't want to stress the worms out. And that's what I'm left with there. And actually, looks like there's some unprocessed coconut coir in here. So here's my container I'm putting my worms and unprocessed bedding in. And I will just dump that right in there, because that can go back into one of my trays. So that leaves us, trying to maneuver all of this, that leaves us with these castings over on this side. And again, I'm going to pull this close so you guys can see how nice and flaky. They're damp, but they're not wet. These castings are. So I'm going to do some more sifting for cocoons. I'm going to finish this up, and then I'll give you some tips at the end. So I got a nice strong light here. I wanted to show you guys. I put a lamp in my mortar tray here. I dumped all of the castings once I sifted them. Literally took me 15 minutes. And look at how nice and fine and flaky these castings are. I'm thinking that because this was my bottom tray in my worm factory, that perhaps all of the cocoons had already hatched, and that's why I didn't find any. I'm sure there may be a few in here, but I mean, I looked pretty hard and I couldn't find any. But everywhere you look here are just beautiful, fine, flaky castings. But I want to zoom in for a second because I want to show you why this is such amazing stuff. Worm castings are living, breathing, full of microorganisms. And if I can get steadier here, sorry. You can see all of the little mites and the springtails all climbing through this substance. And if you were selling your castings, perhaps you wouldn't like that. But for your own personal reasons, those are all springtails that you're seeing. These little microorganisms will help keep working down these castings until, you know, they're even stronger and richer. So I don't worry about them at all. Definitely had a ton of springtails lately. They tend to prefer the moisture-rich environments, but they're just decomposers. They like the moist environment that a worm bin provides. So you can see them climbing about there. Little mites look like little spiders climbing around. I'm gonna try to stabilize this and just let you guys look for a minute. At all of the life in there, and that's only the life that we can see. Beyond that, there's even more. So for me, it was an adjustment to realize that I didn't want castings that were nothing but, you know, fine particles. I want all these extra guys. They're not going to harm anything on your indoor plants. They're not going to harm anything on your outdoor plants. They're simply decomposers, all part of the ecosystem that helps the worm bin work through the bacteria and the fungi and all that other good stuff. Looks like a label of some sort. Oh no, it's a piece of cardboard. I'll just put this in my storage container with them. But I mean, check that out, guys. There's just nothing but springtails and beautiful castings. So I couldn't be more pleased with all of that, but I wanted to show you guys a little bit about what this is really made up of. It's a lot more than what meets the eye, but what meets the eye is still pretty incredible. Alright, so I'm going beyond what this was really all about, which was just showing you how simple the harvest process was using the basket system. Again, I will link Lilia's site below. She uses this method as well as some other harvesting methods that you might find helpful and interesting, so you can hop over there and check that out. But let me know what you guys think about this. I'm going to zoom out And I'm going to show you out of that one tray, I did fill up a container with unprocessed bedding and worms. And this will go back into one of my working trays. There were 2 pieces of trash that looks like they were parts of labels. The rest of it just looks like some cardboard, things like that. The one thing that can be disappointing to people when they first start is that even as long as you let these worm factory trays go, you will still find worms in them. So, I'm going to see, I'm going to dump a little bit off the top here and show you how many worms we're left with, roughly. We have quite a good handful of worms the deeper down you go. Hold on, I'll show you some more. But if you're willing to put in a little bit of extra work to get them out, it's no big deal. Even if some make it into your finished castings, that's fine too. Worms can process and reprocess their own poop, so to speak, multiple times over and they won't die. So even if they make it into your storage container, they'll live. Oh, it looks like there's another label in here. Oh no, I'm not sure what that is. I'll pull it out anyway. But you can see there's a good number of worms throughout this container I have here. I would say there's a couple hundred. Maybe not a couple hundred, maybe like 200 or so worms. But I'm not very good with estimation, so don't take my word for that. But you know, one of these containers compared to all these finished castings doesn't seem too bad to me. And like I said, it was a 15-minute process, pretty painless. And now I can just add these guys back into the working tray, and the rest of this bedding can take a little bit more time to process. So drop your comments below, like this video, subscribe if you would like some more content from me. I'll be back with you guys soon for another update, and I would love to hear your feedback. What methods do you use to harvest your worms, and what have you found works and what doesn't work? I'll talk to you guys soon.